Oh, hi. My friend Andrew told me to make a tutorial, so I'm going to try. I'm going to show you a couple things that I use and one of the techniques that I discovered while I started doing this whole tabletop crafting thing. Let's do it.
Okay, so these are the basic things I usually use. Let's get to it. I use a ruler, obviously. Sometimes metal works better because you're using a blade. It'll cut the edge. This particular one, I've got gouges all over the one side. But I also use the speed square. It's a carpentry tool, but why not use it for that too? So you got foil for texturing. You got a board with the sandpaper on top, masking tape, and glue stick just in case you need to stick things together temporarily. Hot glue gun. I use parchment paper to keep the glue from sticking and the glue gun doesn't stick down while I'm not using it. Then you got pins and a tack just for little details, the knife, the scissors, billions of pencils and mechanical pencils specifically because it's very, very tiny. I'll be using that in this video. Sometimes I use the hot wire cutter, but it's only for certain things. I have a speed square, which is bolts on there. You loosen them, and then you can slide it down to make a straight edge. And that is it. Let's get to it.
Yay, voiceover magic. So first I grabbed a thick piece of cardboard. I just put that underneath for stability. I was going to do a 3" by 3" just as a generic dungeon tile size. I do like it when something works out accidentally. It turns out that one line went right on that crease, so it was just easy to make that straight. I chose the side of the cardboard that was already straight to make sure I was getting a straight line with my square. Then I cut it, and you could cut it from the edge, but that would crinkle the cardboard, so I chose to go from the inside edge first and score that a few times before I tried to cut down into the edge. It's just a good rule of thumb for cardboard. And as you see, I totally messed up that line when I cut again, but it's just structure, so it doesn't really matter. And I chose that piece of cardboard because my daughter drew what she thought I looked like on it. So first, cardboard. Second, foam board. Now this stuff comes from the dollar store. I literally paid $1. It's just 2 thin pieces of paper on a 1/4 inch thick foam. And then you can peel up the paper. It comes right off, and then you got your foam face. So all I did was pop that cardboard on top and make the square. And cutting it pretty much the same way as cardboard. You can't see it, but a regular pencil makes a really good line because the light shines off of it. And voila! Now, depending on how you're going to be using it, I would explain it differently for a different project, but I picked the bottom cut side because it's usually rougher and uglier, more tab to pick up on. Pull that off. In some projects, you'd be taking both sides off. Sometimes doing the paper on the back, if you're going to curl it or curve it or bend it, that won't be good because it'll just come off the back and the paper will be stayed glued to the cardboard. But because this is just flat and I don't tend to do anything with it, other than that, I'm going to glue it right down. And of course, there's always that hard ball. Gotta get that out of there. And just put big old blobs in the corners and then in the center. I would try to do that in a different way if it was bigger. Learned that one the hard way. So just push her down, and she's good. Line her up. So now, I take the ruler, and if you notice, I went with one measurement, and then I changed my mind. I went with 3/8 in the end, which did seem a little small. It probably should have been like half an inch or something so it would show up better, but well, whatever. So I went with 3/8. I just marked it all the way down on one end and then on the other. And then I made my lines. And that was my first set of lines for the boards themselves. You'll notice I keep flipping the ruler because the one side has no nicks in it, and then the other side has tons of nicks in it, like I mentioned earlier. So when I need to draw a straight line, I flip it. Okay, after I did my quick lines, I had to decide on the pattern of the boards, because just like when you make real boards, you gotta stagger them. So I decided to start off with 1 inch for the small, and then only needed to make 2 lines. And after I lined up the ruler, I just have to know to go every other when I make the lines for the other direction. Now I went with a longer board for the next set after I marked that one, because I realized it looked weird to have 2 short ones near each other. So I made it like 1.5 inches long. And then I lined her up and did every other again. Then the last set, I just threw on a couple a little bit off from each other just to make it look a little less perfect, more like somebody was trying to make floorboards with different sized ones. So I just freehanded these ones. So we don't need the regular pencil. Now we move to the mechanical pencil, because it's got such a thin point. It makes it really good for carving in all of the little pieces. But for this beveling on the lines, I pushed the lead in and I just used the plastic end to run through each line to make it a little deeper and to curve in the edges of each board. Don't do it too hard or else you'll just catch all the foam and make it fleck off and make a mess. So you just put it at an angle and you drag her through at just the right angle so it barely bevels, because in real life floorboards wouldn't be that big of a gap in between, but just enough, just for some light to bounce off of it. Now on the smaller ones, I start on the top half of each one and then I flip it to get the other half, because if I go all the way down, the bottom part of the line looks flat still. So going at it from both directions gives it more of a curved, natural look. And there's all the beveling done. Now I take the tack and I pop in 2 holes on either side of each of the boards for nail holes on every single one. And if I was doing a long boarded huge square, like a whole floor of a tavern, which I will show you later, I also do a row on the center of each of the long boards, because that's how you actually would nail boards on the floor. I put it all the way through so that there's enough space for some of the paint and stuff to get in there, and you don't have to really worry about it poking through because you have the cardboard at the bottom. And I actually missed one. So I grabbed the tinfoil just as a little first thing. I didn't do it last time I made floorboards, but I figured there's gonna be a lot of nicks and cuts in there, so I just gently put it in. If I were to do it too much, it would look like stone. And I definitely don't want to make stone floor. But if I would have just left it there with the holes and painted it gray, it would have actually looked like metal. But there you go, you got a couple little marks and dents. It's not focused too well. And now we go to the carving. Now this is the thing that for years I was terrified of doing anything that looked like wood, because I hadn't really tried it before, but I forced myself to do it when I did this stuff. So I discovered, just by looking at references and stuff, the pattern. Like most people kind of notice the generic pattern of wood, but rather than glossing over it and make it sound like it's easy, it's not super easy, but it's the kind of thing where you got to start doing it, and it almost before your eyes, it becomes good when you've gotten to a certain point. Like when I first put that little circle knot down there, it looks weird. It doesn't really look good. But as you keep contouring the lines to match the curve of the knot, I always start with the knot first because you kind of emanate from there. After you look at it, after putting a few lines down, you'll see some spaces that could be filled in, because really the key is to fill in all the spots that are big and untouched. Can't see it too well, but hopefully that pops up more. It would pop up more if we were going to paint it, but I want to get better at that before I bother doing that in front of the camera. So I just kind of intuitively go with it. I find the center and I either put a straight, well, not straight, sort of a squiggly down the middle, and then I keep matching all the rest of the lines to that. And sometimes I'll do like a circle knot, just where the branch had been, and then I just contour around it. And it really doesn't super matter where you put it, as long as you don't put the lines in the opposite direction. See right there, I struggle a little bit because my pencil keeps flopping away from the line, but I just keep going down the best I can and then fill the spaces in. As long as you make all the lines continuous as best you can, it will turn out looking like wood. It's kind of magical. Sorry that's not coming out too well on camera, but when I turn it to the side, it kind of shows up better. Right there you can see it a lot better. But here we got the sharp edges that doesn't look quite natural, so we're going to take it to the sandpaper, and I just kind of slide it on there, bevel the corners the best I can. I don't do it too much because I don't want it at like a 45 degree. So just enough to take that sharp edge off, and then I hit the corners a little too and try to pull off those little pieces that come off. Now, this is last little tool I made myself just out of some thin wire. I bent it in half and then I spun it once to make a little holding loop. And those little wires, if you go slow and push down pretty hard, it will deepen the cracks in the lines that you put in there, and it'll accentuate what you already put in. And if you do it slow, it'll just add a little more texture. So here you see a big old done floor that I'm doing for the tavern in the game I'm leading. You can see the lines a little bit better on there just because it's got a lot of pencil in there to accentuate it. But that's a whole entire place, and I did learn the hard way how to glue and not glue on that one because the foam came up a little bit. And then here you see an opening door for a underground crypt, and this is old and aged wood, so it was a lot deeper, and I put more harsh lines in it, and I got to do the ends of it as well. I had to use a reference image of a railroad tie for that one. So there you go. That's a simple, quick little thing on how to make wood texture. And if that was cool, let me know. I guess it was pretty fun to do. Maybe we'll figure out something else as I figure it out
I'll share it and help us all figure it out. Not that there isn't any other tutorials out there, but whatever. Till next time. Peace.